Good morning, everyone. Please, if we could now find a seat. There still are seats. We're delighted to have so many people here, of course, and such a great turnout. Just give you a moment to get the final seating. My name is Patrick Hosmer. I'm Vice Provost in Indiana Graduate School. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all to Ohio State here as you begin your graduate studies. Y para la gente que habla en español, quiero darle la más calurosa bienvenida. Bienvenidos. So, this is a globalized enterprise, and at least I know Spanish. So with that, again, we're very pleased to have you here. It is the opening of the year. The energy and enthusiasm, of course, is always a hallmark of this day, and it's a very special event. So we're going to begin our program. Morning remarks from President Drake. I know that many of you have just recently arrived at Ohio State and are still in the process of making Columbus your new home. Well, you're not alone. Dr. Michael Drake is in his second month as Ohio State's 15th president, having come to the university from the University of California, Irvine, where he served for 9 years as chancellor and distinguished professor of ophthalmology and education. As chancellor of UC Irvine, President Drake oversaw the establishment of a school of education and a college of law and helped launch new academic programs in health sciences. His leadership was instrumental in the physical growth of the UC Irvine campus and in the increases in the number of international applicants, the percentage of students completing their degrees in 4 years, and the number of students from underrepresented minorities. Dr. Drake previously served as Vice President for Health Affairs for the University of California System and as a faculty member of the UC San Francisco School of Medicine, where he conducted clinical research on glaucoma and maintained a surgical practice. He is the author of numerous scholarly articles and 5 textbooks. Dr. Drake earned his BA from Stanford University and his MD from UC San Francisco. His honors include elected membership in the Institute of Medicine and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, and he currently serves on the board of the Association of American Universities and on the Executive Committee and Division I Board of the NCAA. Please join me in welcoming President Michael Drake.
Thank you very much. OH? You'll get better at that after you're here for a while. So I'd love to take this opportunity to give all of you a warm Buckeye welcome. Let me just ask, just by a raise of your hands, how many were undergraduates at The Ohio State University? So great, that's about 15 or 20%. How many were undergraduates at some other university? Well, welcome, and welcome to the big time. It's wonderful to have you here and wonderful to be starting this academic year with you. As we were hearing, just been here for a few months and had a chance to begin to tour around the campus and the city. Both are immense and both are incredible, and you'll get to make them home, and I find them all a wonderful place to live and to learn and to grow. We're a research institution, and we have 2 major goals. One of our goals, of course, is education, transmitting knowledge, but a really important goal that we have is to create new knowledge. And one of the things that you'll all be doing in this phase of your careers is working very actively with us in the creative and research parts of our enterprise and helping to create that new knowledge. You have a chance to really make contributions in this endeavor, and we look forward to nurturing and watching and growing with you as these contributions come forth. Now, some of you have crossed oceans to get here. Let me ask, how many of you did your undergraduate education in another country? Just raise your hands. That's amazing. And others of you, as we saw just a little bit ago, have just crossed the street to be here. And one of the nice things about graduate education is that we bring people from all over the world together to learn together. And the people who come from other parts of the world bring special things to us that can teach us, and also they then learn special things from us about the way that we conduct ourselves. One of the things that we want to do is to enable and empower and inspire you to be your very best, and enable, empower, and inspire you to make a difference in the world. We love it when things that we do support all 3 of those endeavors, and we focus as much of our time and attention as we can on doing those things. And we're interested in excellence in a variety of ways. Of course, we're interested in academic excellence, and you've all been academically excellent to be admitted to graduate school and moving forward as you are. We're excited about that. You all, many of you will be teachers in one way or another. doing TA-ships or other ways that you'll be really focused on that academic excellence that takes place in the classroom. I've already touched on research excellence. That is the excellence of creating new knowledge, creating new ideas, and you'll be involved in that. And we're also very interested in character and leadership excellence. Character excellence is who you are and how you conduct yourself, and that's an extremely important part of our lives going forward. And as a great university, we're interested in leadership excellence. We are preparing you to really be leaders in the world as you go out and make those changes and propel us forward. Our alums are leaders in all aspects of life. It's great moving around Ohio and just talking to people and seeing how many of our alums are here or in other parts of this country or around the world. And more locally, we find people on school boards or running businesses or being parts of community groups all across the state. And then we look for business leaders or scientists or faculty members. We have people really all around the world. And your education and experience will prepare you to be leaders in all of those different endeavors, whatever one that you choose to pursue. I'm excited that you have chosen to make Columbus and the Ohio State your home. We look forward to working together on our mission to educate tomorrow's leaders, many of which, again, are in this room, and to pushing forward that new knowledge that will benefit humankind. This is a great time to become a Buckeye and join a university that is dedicated to holding itself to its highest principles and ideals. Let me say welcome to the Ohio State University, and let me try one more time with a little bit of gusto now that you're practiced. OH? Ohio. Much better. Thank you very much. And now, are you going to introduce?
Thank you very much, President Drake. I think by the end of this, we're going to get pretty good at this OH business, right? Very important. Next, I have the great honor to introduce our Provost, Joseph Steinmetz. As Ohio State's Chief Academic Officer, Executive Vice President and Provost Joseph Steinmetz is responsible for the administration, coordination, and development of all academic functions of the university. Dr. Steinmetz served as Vice Provost for Arts and Sciences and Executive Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences before assuming the role of Provost 1 year ago. Dr. Steinmetz came to Ohio State from the University of Kansas, where he was Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences and a University Distinguished Professor. Prior to that, he served as Chair of the Department of Psychology and Executive Associate Dean for Arts and Sciences at Indiana University. Provost Steinmetz is a behavioral neuroscientist whose work has been recognized by the National Academy of Sciences, and in 2012, he was named a Fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science. He earned his bachelor's and master's degrees at Central Michigan University and his doctorate at Ohio University. Please welcome Provost Steinmetz.
Good morning, everyone. And let me try one more time. OH. That'll be the last time I'll do it. Welcome to Ohio State. Graduate education is mind-opening and mind-shifting. I guess you could say that graduate education gives a new meaning to the phrase a mind-altering experience, but this is a mind-altering experience that's in a very good way. Above all, I think you'll find that graduate education will help you develop new ways of thinking. Years ago, when I was entering graduate school to study experimental psychology in a fairly new field at the time, which was called neuroscience, I thought I would come out knowing a lot more about the brain and how it related to behavior. I actually learned that, but I also learned a lot more. I learned how to be a scholar and how to relate to other scholars. I learned about the academy and its relation to the outside world. I learned some very practical things about how to live on a small stipend and where I could find the cheapest beer in town. But most importantly, I learned about myself, where my limits were, and how I could push past those limits. You might have chosen Ohio State for your graduate experience because of the reputation of a particular faculty member who is a top scholar in your discipline, and you might have already picked a topic to pursue. However, I encourage you to keep an open mind. Make as many innovative connections as you possibly can, including with faculty and graduate students in other disciplines. I'm sure the faculty members you meet will welcome your interest and welcome your curiosity about their work. And I want to see you expand your worldview as you actually narrow down your interest to select an area for all of your own research projects. As a very large and very comprehensive research university, we welcome and nourish these opportunities, which are everywhere around you. As the late astrophysicist Carl Sagan said, somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known. And as we say, it might as well be here at The Ohio State University. The opportunities to uncover that something at Ohio State are unlimited. It could be viruses that are spread by camel spit, new insights into Jane Austen's work, the impact on concussions on later life, or political awareness among the electorate. You name it, it'll be your problem. We are excited you have joined our university community. Your mind-opening and mind-shifting graduate education experiences begin today. Find your passion and run with it, and good luck and welcome to Ohio State.
Well, thank you very much, Provost Steinmetz, and again, President Drake. So now I'll continue. I'd like to make some remarks about graduate education. That is, what is it? Why does it matter? And I'll add, and what are we doing here for you to help you make the most of it? Let's start a bit about, as I say, at the very top level, just some of the hallmarks of graduate education. I want to emphasize, of course, that the education is important, but it's all about the people who pursue it and who do it. And in the end, we have all these activities, but as I always say, in the end, it's the faculty and the students and the researchers that actually carry it out. And that's what we in the graduate school certainly keep in mind. Well, and already Provost Steinmetz and President Drake have mentioned some of the key things. It's about creativity. It's about solving problems, and in these days, you hardly have to inform you of all the interesting, crucial, difficult societal and economic and technical and social and situations that are out there. There is no lack of opportunity in this whole area, which is why I think it's a great time to be a graduate student. And it's about making new knowledge, which for shorthand, we talk about doing research. So those are really some of the top level goals of this. But at the same time, I want to emphasize that graduate education, of course, is a transition from undergraduate education. It's not the same, and it's a good day maybe just to mention that and start to think about it. Because largely, undergraduate education is about acquiring the basic knowledge and things to enable you to, well, for example, become graduate students and go on to careers. So let's consider what the goals of master's and then PhD education are. I always think most simply at the master's level, it's about learning more knowledge, specialized knowledge, advanced knowledge in one's field, as well as the practice and the techniques now needed to really carry out a career at a higher level that can be done with a bachelor's degree. And let's also add that really master's degrees programs, and especially what we call professionally oriented master's programs, are really the fastest growing part of graduate education and a crucial part for our continued development. At the PhD level, it builds on everything that one does at a master's level. I think the hallmark there is it's about now becoming creative in the sense of being able to identify, or I sometimes say think up new problems to work on, and then have the capabilities to do so. And so it's about having the ideas, it's about doing the work, it's about really creating, and of course sharing, that is publishing in more practical terms, what this is about. And I was interested in, as I'll remark a little bit later, as I've learned from experiences in Germany, for example, that they are now calling specifically their PhD students as junior researchers to specifically and explicitly mark the transition from being a student to really a research qualified person. And again, things we ought to know, but I found always good the basis for that. So now let's go a bit on why graduate education is so important. Well, and I want to develop the theme of, I'm going to use the word innovation here a lot, and so as we say, we call it continuous innovation. Remind you that's a word that's widely used for all kinds of things, but for our purposes here, it's about combining things, it's about new ways, making new developments, making new practices, making new products. It's really underpins the whole success of our economic and social and political development. And that's now a commonplace in economics, and in fact realized that it's a crucial part of the prosperity of the U.S. and the developing world. People want to move ahead. And what's less commonly mentioned, however, is the important role of graduate education in achieving that. Going back to my original comment, after all, research and innovation are done by people, and to have successful creative people, you need to have them go through graduate education. So it really does matter, and in fact, these are key things in our continued, our historical and our needs for continued technological and economic development. So what you're doing and where you're going really matters. Also, as I tried to mention with my limited remarks in another language, that I'm very aware of the globalized nature of everything we do these days, and particularly at graduate education, where normally we have about 25% of all our graduate students are from international countries, and as we saw, a very well and large representation here. So it is a globalized enterprise, and I've had the chance to travel my own work over the last several years to other countries, mentioning Germany, where they're undergoing a very major restructuring and a reinvestment in graduate education. Remind you, Germany is where it all started in the 19th century, and yet they've realized the need to improve it and bring it forward and make it most successful for the circumstances in the 21st century. In Asia, where I've been several times, of course, I've noticed that developing economies, developing countries regard this as crucial to move themselves up the economic and prosperity and development ladder. Many of these countries started with basic manufacturing and services and agriculture, but now to get advanced, they are investing heavily in universities and higher education, sending many of you here, and it's clear they understand the importance of this for their own development. So that there's no question in my mind that this is a crucial topic, and I'm glad to see that not only other countries recognize it, but I hope that this will be spur our own country to keep competitive and keep our edge too, because it is absolutely crucial for where we're going. Well, going on to what the graduate school does, and what I've been trying to do, and what I call strategic development efforts, is look out for these new trends and bring them back to campus and help ensure that our programs here are really going to prepare you for careers and where you're going in the 21st century. One particular activity you can find on the web is that I've chaired the National Commission called Pathways Through Graduate School and Into Careers, that made me aware of the importance of thinking through all the aspects that are needed for a successful career these days, not just the technical and knowledge and research activities, specialized things you do in your programs, but the broader things too, the broader skills. And we're working to do that so that, in fact, you'll be prepared for the breadth of careers you'll likely have. Things are different than when I went to school, for example. I think it's very important that all of us emphasize and prepare you for that. And the message to take away here is start talking to your program and your advisors early on about this, because there are tremendous opportunities out there, but we have to prepare. Well, and I say, and what about the graduate school? It does many things, but it's a service center. It's the main portal. It's the main center for graduate education on campus, and our real role is to support you. Your work, of course, will be done at the program level in great detail, and that's where most of your life will be, of course, but that we interact with you. We're your college of record. We provide crucial support services, and in addition, we try to foster and open opportunities for you at these broader activities, including everything from health and wellness to recreation and any support you may need. Well, with that, I say you are here. One more advance. You are here for a graduate degree, and we're here to help. So at this point, I'd like to ask our own staff to just come forward here in the front of the room and just stand maybe before the podium in the spirit of making clear who's who. And if you just wouldn't mind coming up. It's always important, as I always say, work is done by people. You know, this is the age of technology. This is the age of the internet. This is the age of everybody living on these things. But in the end, it's really underpinned by people, and I want to emphasize that too. And so, again, here's the group of people. You can see them later on. Partly I want to recognize all they do, we're a group of approximately 22 full-time staff. We do a lot for the 10,000 students here. But that we cover everything from your registration and graduation services to issues that may come up to these new programs. And these are the people that all make it happen. So I want to, first of all, recognize them. But then second, after this program is over, then if you have further questions, feel free to ask them too. So with that, again, complete our welcome. Look forward to a great day here. And that this is really the introduction to what's going to be your career at Ohio State. It is an astounding place, actually. I should close by saying, you know, sometimes I say it in different ways, but I'm an astronomer, so I really do know about things on what I call the cosmic scale and the universe at large. But even though I've been here 21 years in different capacities, I came as chair of the astronomy department. The universe of Ohio State, I'll tell you, is pretty remarkable. Despite my time here and all the things I've done, I learn new things about it every day. So maybe I'll leave with a theme. Among the things to do here, in addition to your own program, explore Ohio State, because this is one of the most remarkable places in the world, and you'll find resources and people and activities that'll greatly broaden and enrich your whole life. So with that, maybe we should end on another OH here. Okay. Thank you very much. Now to continue with our program, what we're doing here is just trying to give you a sampling of activities and people and types of people you're going to be interacting with. So we've heard from the president and the provost, and I'll give them some remarks. We're going to now have remarks by a professor, by the president of the Council of Graduate Schools, and then one of your own colleagues, a graduate student, in the spirit then of trying to give you a sense, going back to the people theme, what do people actually do here, and you're going to interact with them. So I'm going to start now by introducing Professor Lisa Floorman. We've heard from both President Drake and Provost Steinmetz about the importance of graduate education and research here, and I think there's no better way to emphasize that importance than to showcase one of our own distinguished graduate faculty members. Professor Lisa Floorman earned her BA from the University of Virginia and 2 master's degrees, and her PhD from Columbia University. Since joining the Ohio State faculty, she has earned the Alumni Association's Distinguished Teaching Award, has served as Graduate Studies Chair in the History of Art, has been a member and chair of the Graduate School's Graduate Council, and she's currently serving as Department Chair in the History of Art. Dr. Floorman's primary interests are in 20th century European art, and she teaches courses on the historical and conceptual bases of art history, on Picasso, and other topics in modern art. She has published numerous scholarly articles, reviews, and essays, and in March of this year published her second book entitled Concerning the Spiritual and the Concrete in Kandinsky's Art. Please welcome Professor Lisa Floorman. So it's just advances there. Point it over there, it seems to work better.
Okay, great. Glasses are required. Good morning. My charge from the graduate school for today was to tell you a little bit about my work and why I'm interested in it, to describe my intellectual and professional trajectory, perhaps throwing in a bit of advice along the way, and all of this ideally within 12 minutes' time. At least one of us, I'm reasonably sure, will have been left breathless by the time I finish. So as Dean Osmer said in his introduction, I'm an art historian. My particular interests are in 20th century European art, and on the more theoretical side, the early history of my field. Except for the 6 of you entering the doctoral program in my department, art history probably isn't something you've spent a great deal of time studying, and the history of the discipline will be even less familiar. I'll try to change that. Its modern form really began with a series of lectures on the fine arts that the German philosopher Georg Friedrich Wilhelm Hegel, there he is on the right, gave in the early 19th century. Lectures that were subsequently published in book form under the title of Hegel's Aesthetics. In those lectures, as elsewhere, Hegel drew a sharp distinction between, on the one hand, nature and material things, and on the other, the realm of Geist. Now, that latter word, Geist, is a bit tricky to translate. Usually it's rendered as spirit or sometimes thought. But what Hegel is really getting at are the collective beliefs and values of a given civilization. According to Hegel, art is the place where Geist, which is otherwise wholly immaterial, becomes embodied in sensuous form. The place, in a sense, where it takes on a different guise, becoming other than it was. Becoming, for example, something as becoming other than it was. This is resistant Geist. There it is. Becoming something other than it was. Becoming, for example, something as concretely tangible as a Greek temple. Sensuously manifested in this way, Geist is then able to contemplate itself. The ancient Greeks gathered around their temple were able to reflect upon the beliefs given visible form there, and that in turn resulted in a transformation of those beliefs, and so also the necessity to construct a new temple. In some sense, we could say that having become other than it was, that is, having taken on material form, Geist then returns to itself in a state different from the one from which it started out. This structure or pattern, moving out into otherness and returning to a self substantially changed as a result, is typically referred to as the Hegelian dialectic. For Hegel, it simply was the shape of history, the means by which civilizations evolved. A word that crops up frequently in Hegel's discussion of all of this is the German term Erfahrung, experience. The English word is both a bit overused and really misused. We talk about experiencing heartburn or disappointment when the Buckeyes lose, but those aren't experiences in the real Hegelian sense. Two Erfahrungen change you. They bring you back to a self fundamentally different, hopefully better and more self-aware than the one that began the journey in the first place. I might just interject here for what it's worth that when I began graduate school many, many years ago, we weren't gathered around a Greek temple, but still, my intention was to study 19th century European art. My growing fascination with the history of the discipline led me, however, to briefly entertain the idea of becoming a classicist, since Hegel and many of the other founders of the discipline regarded Greek sculpture as the historical apex of art. Ultimately, though, I settled instead on the 20th century, largely because the work of that era seemed to address itself to the kinds of philosophical questions that interested me. The 20th century, to phrase things in a more or less Hegelian sort of way, is where art became increasingly self-conscious about its own historical and philosophical justifications. I then wrote my dissertation, which later became my first book, on Picasso's interest in classical antiquity, and have been known ever since primarily as a Picasso scholar. Were we to chart my personal trajectory, it would look something like this. I began as a modernist, but with a focus on 19th century art. I then developed an interest in classical antiquity, especially Greek sculpture, before coming not quite full circle, but closer to where I'd started out, richer, I think, because of the detour. I don't necessarily recommend that during your own graduate careers you change your minds quite as often as I did. I certainly couldn't do that with so many of the representatives from the graduate school here. And they're right, there are real issues about time to degree and, of course, funding. But I do want you to know that sometimes even things that seem at first like digressions or wrong turns can actually lead you in pretty interesting directions. The best path isn't necessarily the one that adheres to a straight line. Now, in the 6 or so minutes I have remaining, I want to tell you about something I've recently been involved with and which I hope you'll have a chance to experience for yourselves this fall. It's an exhibition opening next month at the Wexner Center for the Arts and running through December. The Wexner Center, in case you don't already know, is that odd-looking building just a couple of 100 yards down College Road, directly across from the south end of the Oval. The exhibition will be comprised of works from the Wexner family's personal collection, which is one of the best of its kind anywhere in the world. These are works which rarely travel, that is, they aren't often lent to other museums for public viewing, and so they haven't been widely seen. Consequently, the show here at Ohio State is a rare opportunity, and I expect that plenty of art historians and others simply interested in modern art will travel from great distances to see the show. As OSU students, you're already members of the Wexner Center, so it would be that much more of a shame were you to miss it. The collection is centered on the art of Picasso, Giacometti, and Dubuffet, all 20th century artists, all committed to making figural work, even long after abstraction had gained widespread popularity. My main contribution to the exhibition so far has been writing an essay on Picasso for the catalog. Part of my task, as I understood it, was to explain why the artist maintained such a strong commitment to something so unfashionable as figural representation. It wasn't out of any deep-seated resistance to change. As I'll show you in a minute, Picasso was one of the most protean artists ever. In fact, his greatest fear was that he might fall into simply repeating himself. But he did have a particular antipathy toward abstraction. He once explained it to the writer Alain Parmelin by saying that for him, painting an abstract or non-representational image would be tantamount to pretending he wasn't there, that he didn't exist. For him, paintings were fundamentally intersubjective. That is, they were means for staging encounters with other people, real or imagined. Consequently, the position this side of the frame, the position that we as viewers also take up when we go and stand before one of his paintings, is absolutely integral to the work itself. Let me give you an example using a painting not in the Wexner exhibition. It's one of Picasso's best-known canvases, his Demoiselle d'Avignon from 1907, there on the right. It's an image of 5 women, some threatening, some more alluring, all posed in a very shallow, even claustrophobic space. As you can see from the preparatory sketch on the left, Picasso initially intended that there would be 2 male figures, the clothed ones, present among the company of women, and that most of the action would unfold, as it were, parallel to the picture plane. At some point, however, he decided to drop the male figures and to reorient the composition, effectively swinging it 90 degrees outward into space, so that we, the viewers, would become the focus of the demoiselle's attention. It's a bit like the difference between being told a story in the third person and having someone call out, "Hey, you!" It tends to get your attention. Even when they're rather more subtle than the Demoiselle d'Avignon, most of Picasso's figure paintings work similarly. They address themselves directly to us rather than staging scenes that we are merely vicarious witnesses of. See the problem? Okay. Here, for example, is one of the works that is in the Wexner collection, Picasso's Woman and Child on the Shore. The figures within the painting are presented almost as a single entity, bound together by touch. The woman places her hand on the boy's back, he grasps her shawl, she cradles what I take to be a baby against her breast. Rather than looking at her children, the woman turns in our direction. Neither plea nor indictment is easily read in her features. We seem to meet her simply on the plane of our shared humanity, even as the desolation of the landscape and our confinement this side of the frame creates an insuperable physical and emotional distance that, to my mind, only makes the image all the more poignant. In this work, the highly classicizing Mother and Child from 1921, the figures are pushed into the foreground, seemingly within arm's reach. But this time, neither pays us the least attention. Here I want to say we are uncharacteristically but deliberately excluded from any role within the composition, and that's significant. The painting isn't about us. It's about the physical and emotional bonds between mother and child, and the gray blankness of the background and chair intimate the extent to which each of them is aware only of the other. They constitute their own self-sufficient world. Some of Picasso's later paintings, such as this one here, where the figures again turn and face us, seem to demand not merely our empathy, but a more radical self-othering. They ask us, in effect, to imaginatively inhabit the woman's vantage point. The surrounding environment seems an extension of her psychological state, as if our perception were being filtered at least partially through hers. The room closes in upon her. The brim of her hat has been assimilated to the angle where the wall abuts the ceiling, much as her chair back aligns with and is absorbed into the right-hand corner of the room. Her body and face alike appear to have become architectonic, as if she had no existence independent of that room to which she's been confined. Pressed forward as she is toward the space we occupy, we feel her claustrophobia as our own. One final painting, which unfortunately I don't have time to discuss even at that level of detail. In the Transfigurations catalog, I argue that the composition is staged in such a way that we're invited to imagine the woman gazing into a mirror, the painting itself showing us her reflection as if it were our own. As with the previous work, it's not then simply a matter of the canvas bringing us face to face with another person, but of it asking us to project ourselves into her situation. Picasso's paintings, his figure paintings above all, are, I would argue, a means of encountering otherness, of confronting and perhaps even inhabiting different ways of being. My final thought for you this morning is the hope that whether it's by going to the Transfigurations exhibition this fall or via other means, during your time here at Ohio State, you repeatedly expose yourselves to the new and the different, and that by reflecting upon that difference, you'll be meaningfully changed by the experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I think we're already in our first half hour here, giving you a sense of the astonishing breadth here at Ohio State. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have. Particularly, I think the scholarly approach that Lisa brought to the ability to explain to the public. But I have to say, it fits right in with the theme we've been talking about so far, so much of creativity. I can hardly think of anyone more creativity than I know of than Picasso. I wonder if he got a graduate degree or not. Probably not. But let me tell you why I happen to like Picasso a lot just as a non-specialist on it. But among the reasons, if you ask me why, and why it applies to my work, and I think it should apply to yours, is he really came up with new ways of looking at the world. And that's what just always blows me away. But that I urge you to think about that. In whatever field you're in, the way you can make advances is stepping back sometimes and trying to look at things in new ways. So thank you very much, Lisa. Now we'll move on. I'm very pleased to introduce Joshua Coy, who is serving his second term as president of the Council of Graduate Students, the organization which represents all graduate students at Ohio State. Josh is originally from Youngstown and earned his undergraduate degree in theater from Westminster College in Pennsylvania. He is a master's student in arts, policy, and administration, and is a recipient of the program's Barnett Fellowship. He is also pursuing a graduate minor in city and regional planning. Serving as a graduate student and president of CGS keeps him very busy, as you can imagine, but he still finds time to play banjo and run a nonprofit band called Billy Two Shoes, which plays bluegrass and country music. Josh reports that all the band's proceeds, over $50,000 over the past 4 years, are donated to food pantries across Appalachia. That's really special, Josh. Please welcome Josh here.
Well, thank you all. I get the opportunity to speak at a lot of occasions throughout the year, and this is pretty much my favorite, getting to see all the new faces, all the smart people in the same room. Just a couple years ago, I was sitting where you were, pretty excited to be here, a little bit terrified, but mostly excited. Today's extra special for me because my wife is somewhere in the audience. She'll be returning to school to get her master's in art education and be a GTA in art ed. So a moment of silence, please, for our credit rating. So I'm here to speak to you about the Council of Graduate Students and what we do. So we're your student governance body for all graduate students on the Ohio State University campuses. CGS has existed since 1955. That makes us the oldest graduate student governance body in the country, believe it or not. That's pretty impressive. And our mission is basically to advocate and program to ensure that your graduate student experience is the best that it can be here on campus. So we serve roughly 11,000 grad students. We all have seats on up to almost 100 different university committees. These are committees that touch on all kinds of various topics across campus that have faculty, administrators, students on board to help drive policy for OSU. We have 11 internal executive committees, a little bit more on those later. 10 seats on University Senate. Those are all elected positions, all currently filled, but we are looking for some alternates. University Senate is comprised of all the administrators, faculty, and not only CGS, but our partners at USG, the Undergrad Student Government, and IPC, the Interprofessional Council. And we also have some national advocacy we do on the federal level with the SAGE Coalition, which is an advocacy group for mostly land-grant universities, big universities like us here at Ohio State. I apologize, a little formatting problem here. Our internal committees, though, are focused on programming for you all directly from CGS. Any grad student can serve as a committee member on these committees, and there are 11 committees this year touching on a lot of different areas that we think are important to graduate students. There we go. A big point of information for you in terms of if you want to know what's going on with CGS, you want to go to our website here. This is where you'll find a ton of information on CGS. You can find out who your delegate is, all the meeting minutes if you want to know what's been going on lately with CGS, funding, which I know is very important to everyone, and we'll be talking about in a minute. Elections as well begin here. So please note cgs.osu.edu and take a look at it when you get a chance. So what do we do? Advocacy is obviously one of our biggest missions in terms of what we do for you all on campus. Every program, every department that you're in has at least one seat in CGS. It's determined mathematically, but everybody gets at least one seat. We have 134 possible seats as a result, but currently only 76 are filled. So some of you might actually be in a program that has no representative right now. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's important that, you know, everybody's voice is heard, so there's a way for you to get involved if you're interested. So we have lots of committees, tons of meetings and collaborations with all kinds of different stakeholders across campus, and we advocate on your behalf for things that are important to you, like stipends, lots of different issues that might affect graduate student life. And it's important that we have this voice, and we have great partnerships with those folks that we work with. Informational, we serve as another point of information for you. You're going to get lots of emails as a grad student here, but please make a point to pay close attention to those you get from CGS, because these are tailored specifically to you and for things that we think are important to you. So take a moment to look at those when you get a chance. Your delegate as well within your department is your primary point of contact for CGS, so that's somebody you're going to want to get to know. Social, we do lots of things throughout the year that we try and create some opportunities for you all to get together, be it for networking purposes, be it for forums that we might create, for academic purposes, just things to take some stress out of graduate student life, for some opportunities to volunteer and gain service. Those are available through CGS. We partner a lot with the Ohio Union Activities Board. That's another name that you're going to want to become very familiar with. They do a lot of great work for us here at Ohio State. Through the Office of Student Life and the Ohio Union Activities Board, the amount of programming that you get as a graduate student here at Ohio State there is no parallel in any other graduate institution, believe it or not, in the country. Most graduate schools across the country offer zero programming for graduate students, nothing at all. Ohio State is really leading the charge on this. OUAB works very, very hard to put on a ton of stuff for students on campus, and specifically OUAB Grad Prof tries to tailor some things for you all. But you'll have lots of opportunities to just do fun stuff throughout the year to get you out of your labs, take a break from studying, and maybe meet and network with some people you wouldn't have a chance to, or just have a great experience, go to a ball game, a crew game. DTICS downstairs on the first floor of the Ohio Union, you're going to want want to get familiar with DTEX and what they do, because you can get some great discounted or free tickets to go to some awesome things there. So please look into that, and we will help you along that journey. Some of the other things that CGS is trying to do is create some more off-campus activities. Columbus is a fantastic city. I happen to live downtown. I love Columbus. And we don't want you to spend your entire career here at OSU and not get a chance to experience Columbus. So one of the things that will be coming up is our second year. We have a sort of collaboration with the Short North Alliance, which is a cultural district just down High Street between OSU and downtown. And each Halloween they put on a big festival called Highball, and we'll have free tickets for you all for that available coming up soon. Funding opportunities, another huge thing for graduate students, right? It's becoming harder and harder to travel, to be able to do some of the things that you need to do because of the cost. So these are some of the big areas that CGS helps sort of cover some of those gaps. The Edward J. Ray Travel Award, we awarded about $35,000 in travel funds to help students get to conferences and present their research last year. Career Development Grant, $8,000 awarded last year. That's just to help you work on some things for professional development. Maybe, pay for the dues for a professional membership fee or something. Global Gateway Research Abroad, we have 10 grants. Last year, we awarded $1,500 each. This is for international travel to research or present. Another great opportunity. And each year we put on the Edward F. Hayes Graduate Research Forum. This will be the 29th year. So it's your opportunity to present your research here to your peers on OSU's campus. All the information for this, by the way, can be found on our website again. So how do you get involved? We have elections every spring and autumn. Springtime is our main elections, but our elections are actually open up right now for you to possibly fill a seat that is vacant at the moment. You can go onto the CGS website, take a look at your program, and see if there's a delegate available. If there's not, then you can run for that seat. And I urge you to do so, please. This is a great chance to sort of meet new people, but also represent the program that you're just coming into. And don't be afraid to be that person, because that's how I started out. Our seat was open when I was when I started out in grad school just a couple years ago. Had no idea what was going on, but I ran for the seat anyway. And look, now I'm president, so how does that happen, right? So please take a look at the website, see what is available for you to run for. A couple quick upcoming initiatives. As I mentioned, OUAB, they're going to be doing a lot of work in terms of research and seeing what really does work for graduate students, and trying to take what they're doing here and spread the word to maybe change sort of the dynamic across graduate schools and what they think of in terms of what graduate student programming does for retention and bringing in students. So when you see stuff from them, please take it seriously, and please take whatever surveys or help them out, send them your suggestions. There's also a couple surveys that you will probably see from CGS that are going to be very important this year. We're going to do at least one survey on just sort of contracts, what it's like to be a GRA, GTA, GAA, troubles that you find in those relationships, things that need to be worked on. So please answer that survey. And another one will be coming as well in terms of graduate student life, housing. We're looking into just what the difficulties in finding housing, what it is you actually want in terms of being a graduate student on Ohio State's campus, in terms of housing options, and what we can do to help advocate on that behalf. So this is our main officer corps here, and just some of the, if you have an issue, who to talk to. I will say that we'll be downstairs just following this. We're outside in the courtyard, so you can just come see us right after this. We'll have some giveaways for you, and if you have any questions about CGS, that's a place where you can get an answer just today. So please come see us. I'd like to thank you all for listening to me. And just like to say that, this is a exciting but stressful time, and please just take the moment and as you spend your time here at Ohio State to enjoy it. I've really loved my time here so far, but if you don't take a second to take a breath and really enjoy this time of your life, you're going to miss it. So make sure you take care of yourself while you're here. Have a great time, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josh. Indeed, CGS is a very active organization. It's a great entry and a way to get involved in this whole breadth of activities that you mentioned. So I'd encourage you to follow up on that. Well, now for concluding our program, and a real highlight, as I say, hearing from what one of our outstanding graduate students has actually been doing, and a topic that looks to me like it's going to be pretty fascinating. I'm pleased to introduce now Zoe Pearson. So we're saying Ohio State graduate students are involved in important and impressive work in labs, classrooms throughout the university, and we're asking one of our distinguished students to share some of her experiences today. So Zoe is a presidential fellow, which is our highest fellowship highest honor, and enables people, gives them support for completing their dissertations. She's a doctoral candidate in geography. A native Californian, Zoe earned her BA in geography from UCLA and her MA in geography with a minor in women's gender and sexuality studies from Ohio State. Her doctoral research focuses on Bolivia's social control approach to coca leaf production, which is a traditional food and medicine, which is also the main ingredient in cocaine production. She's recently returned from conducting research in Bolivia and will share some of her work and experiences with us. So please welcome Zoe Pearson.
Welcome everyone to your first week at Ohio State. It was only almost exactly 6 years ago that I was in the same position you are now, beginning my first term at OSU as a graduate student. And I'm embarrassed to say that despite being a geographer, born and raised in the United States, I also wasn't exactly sure where Ohio was when I was applying here. I don't know if any of you are in that same boat. I guess not 20% of you who went here for undergrad. But I knew no one when I arrived, and I was skeptical about whether or not I would like living here, what to expect. I did like that I could share an entire house for 2/3 the cost of sharing a room in Los Angeles, but so some things were different. And I initially came for a master's degree, not sure if I would stay for my PhD. But here I am, before you today, staring down my last year at Ohio State as a grad student, and I'm studying the coca plant and drug control geopolitics. So how did I end up here, and more importantly, how did I get into drugs? I was told it's over there. Okay, great. It all began after I earned my bachelor's degree in geography at UCLA, when I ended up living and working in Ecuador. I wanted to engage with the world and the topics that had inspired me during my undergraduate studies. I had first worked briefly for an environmental nonprofit organization in Los Angeles, but was unfulfilled and unconvinced by many mainstream environmental approaches. So I sought work as a research assistant, knowing that I might eventually want to go back to graduate school, and I eventually moved to work in Ecuador for a year and a half. I worked for the botany department of a university in Quito, the capital of Ecuador, as a field researcher, mainly on a project evaluating the impact an oil company was having on plant biodiversity in the Amazon. While living in Ecuador, I became intrigued by how Waorani indigenous people were made scapegoats for environmental change, thus distracting from environmental and social impacts oil companies were having in indigenous ancestral territories. This began my interest in the injustices, intentional and not, perpetuated by powerful global actors. But I lacked the conceptual tools to engage critically with what I was witnessing. So I decided it was time to re-engage with academia, and I set my sights on top geography programs, departments with strong political and environmental programs, because my time out of school only reinforced how vital geography's integrative global perspectives are. The discipline considers how social, political, economic, and environmental issues are all related, and accounts for processes that exceed the bounds of a given place. I was drawn to OSU by the number of excellent faculty we have here in what we call human environment geography, as well as by other programs that would be important to my studies, like the Center for Latin American Studies, the Mershon Center for Security Studies, and other departments like the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies, where I completed a graduate minor. Once at Ohio State, I went on to research and write my thesis on this issue of how Waorani are impacted by environmental governance approaches of oil concessions and conservation zones. My experiences in Ecuador alerted me to the real grounded impacts of resource imperialism and social and environmental injustice, themes that would come up again when I accompanied my advisor, Dr. Kendra McSweeney, to rural Honduras for research during the first year of my PhD. We found that demand for illegal drugs and the pressures created by drug war counter-narcotics efforts were socially and environmentally devastating a place where drugs were merely passing through on their way to northern consumers from South American producers. In a place that took us 2 days to access via dugout canoe, we discovered a hidden airstrip cut out of the rainforest and were asked to exchange crisp $20 bills for local currency. We also found entire native villages emptied out because of threats of violence. This experience fueled my already growing research interest in the collateral damages associated with a failing war on drugs and its ability to damage societies and environments. In the world we live in today, we can no longer separate the destructive impacts of drug control from drugs themselves. These twin issues have all too personally affected me and my family, and the many families in Latin America with whom I have done research. So I was understandably curious to learn more when I began hearing that after living with decades of violent drug control, something different was going on in the Yungas and Chapare coca growing regions of Bolivia. Coca producers there were implementing their own brand of coca control against standard drug war approaches. This new form of coca control became the focus of my dissertation research. And as was already mentioned in my introduction, the coca plant is controlled because it's the vital ingredient in the making of cocaine, and as such is itself considered a Schedule I narcotic under the United Nations 1961 Single Convention. But as many of you may know, coca is also a medicine and food used for over 4,000 years by people in the Andes for nutritive, cultural, and spiritual reasons. Chewing coca leaves or drinking coca tea provides a mild energetic sensation similar to coffee, with no negative, harmful, or psychotropic effects. In my early research into the issue, I learned that coca leaves contain higher than average vitamins, calcium, iron, and protein than other food plants. And I also learned during research that in Bolivia, medical doctors actually prescribe the coca leaf to diabetics because it regulates blood sugar. Everywhere I've traveled in the country, people make offerings of coca to Pachamama or Mother Earth, as well as to other gods and Christian saints. And as coca growers have told me time and again, coca is simply the easiest crop to grow, transport, and sell. So it's very important to people's livelihoods. I returned from my third research trip to Bolivia at the beginning of this month, where I chewed coca frequently for energy, stress reduction, and to relieve altitude sickness. Coca leaves are also still used for flavoring the soft drink Coca-Cola, which begs important questions about who can access this resource without repercussions and why. Bolivia's new nationalistic approach to coca control recognizes the local importance of the coca plant and refuses top-down policies implemented by other governments. For me, it's fascinating in large part because coca politics and national politics are so tied up together. Bolivia's president, Evo Morales, rose to national power from his position as a coca union leader. I've heard coca growers say, "We are the government now." Morales fought against past Bolivian governments and U.S. forces in defense of coca, and from that political position leveraged his power and popularity to become president of the country. He has since expelled the United States Drug Enforcement Agency and has advanced this new, largely grassroots approach to coca and drug control that is enacted by the coca growers themselves. The slogan of the new approach is Coca sí, cocaína no, or Coca yes, cocaine no. This community-based approach, often called control social or social control, depends largely on growers voluntarily policing themselves and each other to stick to growing small 40 by 40 meter plots. My research consists mostly of interviews and participant observation with coca growers and sellers in coca fields, at coca markets, and in the offices of Coca Federation buildings. I'm examining how social control works on the ground, but I'm also studying its impacts on coca growers and sellers and their families, national and international politics, and the environment, and the extent to which social control represents a true alternative to drug control policies of the past, which is something that it's touted as doing. The day I arrived in Bolivia on this last trip, in June, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime released their annual report, and they concluded that the amount of land dedicated to the coca crop in Bolivia declined last year for the third year in a row, as you can see here in this table from the report. My research suggests that there are some inaccuracies in these measurements, but I've also found that social control has accomplished its two primary goals, of reducing violence and improving the livelihood security of thousands of cocoa growers and sellers. Still, not everything is perfect, and the more research I do, the more I realize how complex this issue is. But what's happening in Bolivia is important in the context of recent calls by the Organization of American States and other international bodies to change business as usual drug control geopolitics. Okay. From Ecuador to Honduras to Bolivia, what has united all of my graduate research projects since I've been here at Ohio State are empirical and theoretical questions around resource access and governance, environmental and social justice, and the grounded impacts of global issues. Like most research in geography, my research projects question taken for granted assumptions about politics, people, and the environment, and investigates what's really happening on the ground. Another uniting force has been collaboration. I've benefited from thinking of research as a collaboration between myself and academic mentors here and abroad, Ecuadorian and Bolivian campesinos, and fellow graduate students here at OSU and elsewhere. I have benefited from financial investments in my research from institutions like the Office of International Affairs and the Graduate School here at Ohio State, from geography professional organizations, and institutions like the Social Science Research Council. I've learned so much about Andean culture from my Quechua language professor here at Ohio State and his family in Bolivia. These relationships and collaborations have been personally and professionally fulfilling, and they have pushed me to contribute to intellectual and social debates, striving to make my research relevant both inside and outside of academia. As an example, collaborations with my advisor and other colleagues led to a paper in the academic journal Science, coverage of our research in international news media, and an invitation to speak on the impacts of drug policy at the United Nations in New York last spring. Thinking collaboratively about research has also made me a better and more engaging instructor to undergraduate students. Now, as I enter my final year of graduate study, I wish I had coca to keep me awake and healthy while I write my dissertation. But I definitely cannot count on that. It's not legal here. But here's what I can count on for my final year at Ohio State. I know it will hold a lot of challenges and anxieties associated with an uncertain academic job market in the fall. I know it will include the unfortunate but inevitable intellectual inferiority complexes associated with the research and writing process. Get ready for that. But I also know I can count on the community of great friends I have made during these last 6 years. I can count on one friend in particular to seek out restaurant deals and cheap event tickets. She is sitting right there. And help me enjoy Columbus on a graduate student budget. I can continue making free time so that I stay healthy and productive when I am working, and trust me, as a graduate student, you're going to need to make free time and not find it. I can count on my partner, who I met here while at OSU. I can seek advice from my advisor, Kendra, and my other wonderful committee members who care about my own definitions of success in school and life, and I can avoid anti-mentors. And I can count on the generous support of the graduate school. I hope that all of you can count on, slide please. Thank you. I hope that all of you can count on the many things that OSU and Columbus have to offer during your time here. Good luck.
Okay, well, that concludes our formal program. I want to thank all the speakers. I think we've seen a wonderful cross-section representation of actually what I was myself trying to communicate about graduate education and about Ohio State. Thanks to all of you who really brought that all alive, and I think it's very special. I think you've just shown all the things that you can do while you're here. I think the important theme that, well, of course you have an idea on what you want to start while you're here, but look around for other ideas. Taking another path is just fine. So with that said, I also want to thank our staff who made this possible, this huge event, and particularly Ann Salenbeam, Assistant Dean Ann Salenbeam, who put this great program together. Is Ann here? Recognize your role set. And with that, please now, having had this introduction, we have the resource fair, all the opportunities to see activities, booths, tables, and get introduced more of the what I call University of Ohio State. And with that, enjoy your day, and let's say go Bucks here, and now that you're really officially Buckeyes. So thanks again.